Sheesh!
Oh my goodness.
My soul!
Oh!
Oh my god, my mind turned off.
Jene.
Jy wat het bedoel. Daar's hy gister uit die kom aan die uit.
Freak waves have battered South Africa's coastal towns. We find out more from Gerhard Otto, the head of the Disaster Management Centre of the Garden Route. Welcome, Gerhard.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Can you give us an update of the damage caused the past weekend?
Yes, it was a hectic weekend this weekend, specifically on Saturday when storm surge affected our whole coastal area, from Witstrand right through to as far as Peterbilt Bay. We were really hammered. This storm surge was predicted. It was actually we actually got in South Africa Weather Service indicated to us that we will get high waves Wednesday already. And then on Friday, they upped that to an official storm surge. I must say it's been the highest that the water has come in the last 20 years. The last event of this nature was in September 2008. And it didn't come as high as this time. So a lot of infrastructure was damaged. A lot of homes was damaged on the coast. The municipalities in this district, and I'm referring to Hessequa, Mossel Bay, George, as well as Knysna and Plett, that's on our coastal area for the Garden Route, are all working and trying to keep the beaches safe and open as soon as possible. They're busy with repairs to critical infrastructure, transformers, etc. Our roads teams yesterday were working on some of the roads in the coastal areas that needed to be graded so that we can again get access to those areas. So the work is in progress and the assessments for what the damage is on the ground is still being done.
What factors combine to cause such a perfect storm?
It's when you've got this exceptional high tide and you've got a storm on the sea with the wind driving those tides much higher than it normally comes. And that's when you get this type of damages. Actually, about 4 years ago, we worked on specifically combining the data from various departments to create a storm surge early warning. In the past, we didn't get that. It's something new that the Weather Office is providing to us now to give us an update of when we can expect this type of perfect storms and so to be ready. And what we find is people sometimes don't realize how dangerous it is to go and, as a spectator value, visit these areas. And that's why we also lost a lady over the weekend that was washed from the rocks. People don't realize that the waves come where it normally don't come. So when you think it's safe to be on the rocks, the next moment it's not safe and you can be washed off those areas.
Do you know which municipality was worst hit?
Difficult to say. I would say Hessequa on the coastal areas was hit very bad. I'm specifically referring to Vleesbaai, areas on Gouritsmond. And then Adults Bay, really, they got a lot of damages on that specific section there. And I think as we do our assessments, we will find areas that's not as densely populated, where we've lost complete dunes. I saw photos of Tintana, areas in Tintana that there's a lot of coastal erosion. So maybe not houses, but our environment got it.
Now, do you feel that people didn't heed the early warning?
I think to some extent, the warning was a yellow level 4. And I spoke to my colleagues at the Weather Office to say maybe it should have been an orange level 5 or 6, because the impact was much worse than we expected it to be. And sometimes people, they don't realize that this storm surge warnings is specifically for storm surges. It's not normal IC, it's a storm surge and you need to heed the warning. And yes, I do believe people thought, for spectator venue, we can go down to the beach. If you want to see this, we haven't seen this happen before. And it causes a lot of problems for the emergency workers. People don't stay behind the barrier tape that we put up in places. It makes it difficult. And my call for the public is to please listen to the emergency services. They do what they do because of a reason. And we know where it's safe for you to go.
Because if you looked at the footage of restaurants, being hit by what looked like mini tsunamis. They obviously didn't think that was going to happen because people were sitting there just enjoying themselves when wave after wave hit them. So would you advise people, especially businesses, on the beach or close to the beach to heed these warnings and actually close their premises in future when there's an alert like this?
I fully agree. And I think people realize now that with climate change and what we are experiencing, the normal is not the normal anymore. So every time this line gets moved higher and higher up, and just remember the areas above the high water mark, we call it as softer areas because the water never reached that area. Now suddenly with the storm surge, the water will reach those areas, and those areas is not protected. It's not hardened surfaces, so that areas gets affected much worse. So yes, in future, I'm actually requesting an assessment of my coastal area to identify these hotspot areas and to try and put this people's names on a WhatsApp group, for instance, so that we can specifically warn them that your area will be affected next time around.
So that houses can be evacuated, businesses can be closed.
You move your vehicle out of the garage, maybe, or just move the furniture to higher areas in the house, because we also know that if we're going to get effects like this, at some point the insurance is going to say, listen, but I can't pay you every time. You must do something from your side as well. And if you knew that it was going to happen, why didn't you move your car? And then also looking at parking areas at the coastal beachfront areas, if those parking areas is still in a safe place, as we saw what happened in Steyn, where vehicles was washed off the parking area, people were on the hike, and then the vehicles was left exposed. So that's something that we have to go back and do.
Yeah, at Bikini Beach in Gordons Bay, the sea crossed the road. We just saw cars floating. I don't think anybody expected their cars to go floating past Bikini Beach. So we've had a very bad winter. It seems like it's not stopped raining. The wind hasn't stopped blowing. Are you saying this is climate change worsening our winters?
That's my personal opinion. I think this summer we're in for a hot, dry summer after a very cold and wet winter. But for my district, that only says one thing: fires. So we have to prepare for after the winter. We've had a lot of growth, a lot of grass, etc. Grew in areas we've never grew. So with the coming dry season, we're in for a busy fire season coming.
Is the current storm surge over now, or should people still be careful?
The storm surge, as predicted by the weather office, is past. It's moved up along the coast onto the eastern side past us. And there's nothing on the cards for the next week at least. I can't say it's past forever, but when I looked at my history, the data in it, the last one was also in September 2008. So it seems like September is the month we must watch out for this type of freak storms coming through. I won't say it's past for the season. We can get similar events in this month. So we will advise people again, and hopefully this time they will listen to our warning.
Do you know of any other deaths linked to the storms, or was it just today?
Not in my district. It's only a lady that I know that died, and there was somebody else injured, but no fatalities linked to the storm.
Okay, so your advice to people will be to heed the warnings in future to ensure that they don't lose out on insurance by taking a chance.
Yes, that. And also for us from a municipality and local government perspective, it's back to the drawing board to say, but listen, what can we do better? How can we protect people better? How can we harden these surfaces? What do we need to do in mitigating, specifically, we call it disaster risk reduction. How can we reduce the risk in these coastal areas? Sometimes it's difficult. People is now there, they are in harm's way, you can only evacuate. But new developments that we look at, what is the setback line? Where should we develop so that we don't allow development in areas which is going to inevitably be in the part of the sea going forward.
Just lastly, how long do you think the mop-up operations will take?
Well, the critical infrastructure in most of the areas, that will be very fast. Municipalities try to get those areas up and running again within the first 24 hours. But the longer term operations is where you've got municipal infrastructure utilities that washed away on the coast. That can take a while. Some of them might not be important. They are just not placed in the right area anymore. So with previous storm surge, we decided some of the bathrooms, etc., that got washed away, we had to just move them. That's all we could do, move them to higher ground. So this can take the next 6 months to maybe even a year.
Well, thank you. That was Gerhard Otto, the head of the Disaster Management Center of the Garden Route, giving BizNews an update on the storm surge of the past weekend that caused havoc. Thank you very much, Gerhard.
Pleasure, Chris.